And we bring in the Cleveland.com Browns beat reporter, Mary Kay Cabot.
Mary Kay, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, guys. I'm doing great. How you doing?
We're just trying to temper our enthusiasm on the Zadarius Smith acquisition here. I don't know how much of our excitement you were able to pick up on, but is it warranted? Is it over the top? This guy seems to be one of the missing pieces that Jim Schwartz's defense really needed.
Yeah, you know what? Just about a week before this, I had written that they needed and that they were looking for a veteran pass rusher. So I knew they were in the market. They were really looking very hard at Melvin Ingram. And, he was somebody that they came close to. They came close to actually making an offer to, and they were working on a contract structure when the Zadarius thing kind of came back to life on Tuesday or Wednesday. But I think the excitement is warranted. It needs to be tempered just a little tiny bit because of some of the things that I heard you guys talking about right before I came on. He did have some minor injuries last year, a knee contusion, then he missed most of 2021 with a back injury that required surgery. So these things have to be tempered. The enthusiasm needs to just be brought down just a notch. But when healthy, he is dynamite. And I think he's going to be an amazing, amazing complement to Myles Garrett. And, I wrote a column on Saturday. Yeah, I wrote a column on Saturday about, what does this trade mean for Myles Garrett and Obo? And, I kind of really went into depth about how Jim Schwartz will use all these guys and use his rushers. And it really doesn't take a lot of reps away from Obo at all. He looks at the pass rush group globally, and now he's got 3 top rushers that he can divide up about 130 reps among. And then if you mix Dalvin Tomlinson in there into that rush group, then you're dividing it up 4 ways, but you're going to roll these guys in, you're going to keep them fresh, and one way or another, they were going to go out and get another veteran edge.
Mary Kay, when you look at the obviously the D-line is strengthened and the secondary is a strong point. When you look at the linebackers, all of them coming off of injuries, is that something that you think they'll address, or do you think they're totally comfortable rolling out there with those 3 linebackers that they have?
Well, the marquee position on Jim Schwartz's defense is that defensive line. So they have put their money there. They've put all of their resources there. They're hoping that their linebackers come back healthy, because if they do come back healthy, and they fully expect them to, then those guys can do the job that they need them to do. They don't need them to be the superstars. They need them to sort of clean up what doesn't happen in front of them. And so I think that's kind of the philosophy. And that was always the philosophy of Andrew Berry too. I mean, these guys don't go out and, and spend, big, huge bucks on linebackers. So, maybe they'll add another one here or there, but I don't think you'll see them give up, some big name veteran player that they currently have on the team to bring in another linebacker. I think they feel pretty set providing those guys come back healthy.
Mary Kay, what is the timetable on some of the linebackers? I think all of them ended the season either injured or on injured reserve. Sione Takitaki, he got injured. It may be a little bit before we see him. Anthony Walker also has the quad injury, or I don't know how far along he is. You had Phillips and as well as JOK. Do you expect those guys to be fully ready to go during training camp day 1, or is there a couple guys that they'll bring along a little slower?
I think there are a couple of guys that they will bring along slowly during training camp. In fact, I think they'll bring a lot of them along very slowly during training camp. So you might not see these guys practice every single day. You might not see, Sione and JOK practice every day, even Anthony Walker. I mean, JOK is coming off of a mid-foot sprain, and that, that's something to, to have to grapple with as well. So I think these guys will take it easy during training camp. I think to a certain extent, they'll take it easy in the preseason games. But the method to the madness there is to get them to the season healthy. And I think most of them should be about ready to start the season.
Mary Kay, empty your notebook on the rookie minicamp here. What stood out? What has the guys excited? What can you tell us?
Well, let's start with some of the bigger name guys. I mean, Cedric Tillman, he 100% passed the eyeball test. I mean, you stand there, you talk to him, he just looks the part. He's got that Josh Gordon type of build. He's in shape, he's physical, he's big, he's muscular, and, he's going to be that, go down, high point the ball and win that contested catch type of guy. And then, we saw him in camp. He had a few moments here and there where he didn't catch something. He got really mad at himself at those times. And that's good. That's what you want to see in rookie mini camp. But for the most part, he displayed really good hands. He has already natural chemistry with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who I thought showed a lot of poise. I mean, when you start for 5 seasons at UCLA, you've played a lot of football. You come in, not looking, there are some rookie quarterbacks that come into the NFL and they've started 15 games. This guy's got a lot of football under his belt. And, you can see out there that the moment is not going to be too big for him. So those two guys look pretty good together. They're great friends from their high school days in Las Vegas. Then DeJuan Jones. DeJuan, he struggled on the first day. He really did. He had a rough first day. We all saw him throw up out there, and, that was a little bit concerning. But, then I watched him on the second day that we were allowed out there on Saturday, and he pulled himself together. And, he should not have been as tuckered out on the first day as he was, because, I mean, this is not a grueling practice by any stretch of the imagination. Now, it was hot, and so I think he was affected by the heat, and that's something they're going to have to watch, and something they'll have to, kind of keep an eye on down at the Greenbrier for the first 10 days of camp. He's going to have to be ready to go for that, because it's going to be hot down there. And so he struggled a little bit in that muggy heat on Friday. But he pulled it back together. Enormous man. I mean, he's just a big, big man. He took good coaching from Bill Callahan. I watched him get better over the span of 2 days. I watched him try really hard and put his heart and soul into it. So I think he's going to be interesting to watch come along over the next couple of years.
I'm wondering. We had, I think it was Hayden Grove tweeted on Friday that actually Thompson was actually a starter at wide receiver over Cedric Tillman in high school. Is that true? And if that is true, is there any thought that maybe they might have kind of a hybrid, sort of a Cordell Stewart / type, where they might look at him even as a wide receiver if he's got that background?
Well, I mean, you never know. These guys really love versatility, and if you can contribute on the football field in any way, shape, or form, then they will give you some things to do. I mean, a pass to Dorian Thompson-Robinson, why not? That could be cool. He's really good friends with Deshaun Watson. I wrote a column about that when they drafted him, that those guys are really, really close. And Deshaun actually had, some significant input in the construction of the quarterback room. I mean, he's surrounded by a really strong support team in there, and I think that's going to be very helpful for him. He's very close to Joshua Dobbs, very close to Joshua Dobbs. They go all the way back to high school. They've worked out with Quincy Avery for years together, and now you've got another really good friend in Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and I think it's going to be a room where Deshaun has camaraderie, where he has friendship, where he has laughter, where he has people that kind of understand him. And then there is some crossover and some carryover in skill set. So I like what they're doing in the QB room.
Mary Kay, tell me a little bit about my Buckeyes. Ronnie Hickman signed as an undrafted free agent, Tanner McAllister, and then I also want to hear about, I think his name Cam Mitchell, a G News boy. How is he looking? Is he working in the slot at that nickel position?
He definitely can work in the slot, and they will cross-train all of their guys. They're going to cross-train their safeties and their cornerbacks to be able to play in the slot. So any of those concerns that Greg Newsome had about just having to be in the slot all the time, I don't think it's going to be like that. I think that Jim Schwartz will find ways to use other guys in the slot. So, once again, Cam looked good. He looked the part. He's got the the physical tools, and you can see that. You can see guys that if they make a mistake in a rep, then they can come back and correct it. And he was able to take the coaching really well. He was into it. He looked to be in good shape. Those other Ohio State guys, I did not watch them as closely as I did a lot of the draft picks. We're only out there for 2 of the 3 days. And so I was really focusing in on a lot of Dorian, a lot of Cedric, a lot of DeJuan, some Cam, Siaki. So I can't honestly say that I watched, the Buckeye undrafted rookies all that much. But we will have, more opportunities to see them as the offseason goes along.
How you doing, Mary Kay? Quick question. Can you give us some insight on how tight this D-line unit is? Because there's a lot of new pieces coming in. And can you also let us know how Siaki did during rookie minicamp this week?
Yeah, the first thing that I thought about Siaki Ika was that, he just didn't look to have the weight issue that I thought maybe he would have when we first saw him. I was concerned that when he showed up, he would look like, a little bit soft around the middle and a little bit bigger than what you would want to see. And I didn't see that the way that I thought I would. I was pretty impressed. I think he's already really started to watch what he's eating. I think he's already hitting the weight room and working at making sure that he's got good weight on that body. So that's really, really good. As far as the defensive line room in general is concerned, it's a lot of guys that are going to have to get to know each other, and they're going to have to see how everything works out from a chemistry standpoint. Remember, the alpha dog in the room is Myles Garrett. He's the undisputed alpha dog in that room. So it's going to be interesting, I think, to see what the dynamic is going to be now when Zadarius Smith comes in. I think Myles is at that point in his career where he recognizes and understands that a Zadarius Smith can only help him. Last year, he had 16 sacks, Myles did, and nobody else had more than 3. That was not good for him. He had extra bodies on him all the time. He needs somebody else to take some attention away from him, and Zadarius and even Obo will be able to do that. So I think that Myles will embrace this acquisition. I really do. I think he's going to see the wisdom in it, and hopefully those 2 guys will get along, because that's really important. What we're coming off of is a season in which Jadeveon Clowney let the whole Myles Garrett show get to him. It got to him. Jadeveon is a former number 1 overall pick. He didn't want to be anyone's Robin to Myles's Batman. And, we're going to have to see how Zadarius and Myles mesh together. But if they can get that right, I think those guys are going to be really a fearsome duo.
Mary Kay, what I was saying a little bit earlier is now with this collection of talent, for the first time in a long time, I look at the Browns as a team that has enough talent to compete with anybody. It just happens to be from week to week whether or not you're going to make enough plays or the way it goes. But I don't look at the schedule and cross anybody out in terms of saying, oh, we can't beat that team. This is going to be an uphill battle. I look at the talent level. On paper, where does this roster rank for you? I would say in the new era since the team has come back. Where do you think this talent, as constituted, where is it at in the ranking orders for you? Because you've seen a bunch of teams from the Odell, the Jarvis, all of the Baker teams. So you will be able to know based on what we see on paper.
I would say top to bottom, because they have the quarterback now. Any other time that they had Jarvis and Odell and Myles and all those great names together, they never really had the elite quarterback. So this is the best roster that they've had since 1999. I mean, you have to say that, because now you've got Deshaun Watson, you've still got Nick Chubb, you've got Myles, you've got Denzel, and think of all the pieces that they've added. Amari Cooper is one of the best receivers that I've covered here. Then you add in, obviously, Elijah Moore. Now you add in Cedric Tillman. You've got Marquise Goodwin. You've got David Njoku, who's still getting better and coming up the learning curve and doing a really nice job. I think his potential is very great this year. So this has got to be the best roster. I mean, they have completely overhauled this defense. They've overhauled this whole entire defense, especially the defensive line, which they needed to do. And now it just all has to come together, because like you said, when you have it on paper, that's great. It's wonderful to have all the talent on paper, but we've seen many teams before that have plenty of talent on paper. It has to come together. It has to come together through coaching, through scheme, through injuries, staying healthy, sometimes strength of schedule, quite often strength of schedule is a huge factor. And this year they're about right in the middle of the pack. If you go by not by last year's records, because those really could get thrown out the window when you have guys like Aaron Rodgers coming into, onto your schedule. But if you go by projected win totals for 2023, which is what like Warren Sharp of Football Outsiders uses, they're about the middle of the pack in terms of strength of schedule. So I think they have everything it takes to get it done and to contend for a playoff spot and more. But it has to come together out there on the grass.
Mary Kay, out of all the Browns' new dog logos, which one was your favorite?
Oh gosh, the one on the left-hand side, the bottom. It was sort of, it was more like sort of a more simple one, but it still had a little bit of a snarl to it, a little bit of a meanness to it, but it didn't have too much going on. So it was sort of simple, which keeps in line with the Browns theme for these sorts of things, but yet I still thought it had a little bit of nastiness.
Earl, do you have that graphic with the 5 choices?
Actually, we're getting it right now.
You
Give us
getting
1
it?
second.
Because Mary Kay, the one that I liked, I think it was dead in the middle.
The one with the CLE.
It had the CLE kind of hidden in the neck folds. I don't know if you caught that or not, but I thought that was a nice, clever little touch to that Clevelanders would appreciate. I
did not notice that. But perhaps if the other one wins, they can stick a little clee in there somewhere too.
I like what you're thinking there. Okay, when you said that, when I heard you say that this has to be the most talented roster, and then you start ripping off those names, I don't even think there's a dispute that this is on paper. The problem is we've had rosters with big names on it. You mentioned the Odell and the Jarvis, and even though they were missing the piece at quarterback, you still had, a Pro Bowl defensive back in there, and of course Myles Garrett in there. But what do they need to make sure happens so they're not a paper tiger? So they can transfer all of this talent on the paper and put it on the field. Is that Jim Schwartz? Because we're talking about his influence earlier and how he might be the guy that everybody rallies around.
Well, it's not just Jim Schwartz, because they've overhauled the offense too. It's got to be Kevin Stefanski calling the right plays and the right game plan for Deshaun Watson. I think that all eyes are going to be on Kevin to see how he knits this whole thing together. They have 4 new pass catchers. I mean, that's a lot of guys, and that has to come together. They're going up against some offenses that for the most part, have been together for a while. Now, when you look at Lamar Jackson, he's got a new offensive coordinator in Todd Monken, our old friend Todd Monken. So things are going to be different over there. They're not going to be going out and picking up where they left off either. But the Bengals certainly are, and then the Steelers will be building on what they did last year. The Browns, on the other hand, once again, they've got 4 new pass catchers. Deshaun has never started a full season for them yet, and so they've got a lot to pull together on that offense too.
Let's leave it like this. Give us what you're hearing about Deshaun Watson, how he is, the work he's doing, the trip, any nuggets that you have on Deshaun Watson that can sort of help get us excited here.
Well, the one thing that I've seen about Deshaun from the minute he showed up on the doorstep last year, I would watch him, after practice, even in training camp, go down to the far goalposts and just work on his footwork over and over and over and do these agility drills. He has a work ethic like you guys cannot even believe. He is a perfectionist. He's always working on something. And I think that he's going to do whatever it takes to get it right. He's not happy with the way that last year went. He's got these guys working out with him in Houston. Now he's taking them to Puerto Rico this week. So, he's doing everything that he possibly can. And really, that's all you can ask for.
Worked for me. I'm excited. Obviously, we want to see results. We want to see it on the field because we know that he was working hard last year. We know that he was doing everything he could on his own when he was by himself, and then once he was folded back into the team. And we just didn't see the results through 6 weeks. It was very up and down. More of it was probably down than up. What's the way that that's being explained by the organization as to why he looked so rusty?
Well, I think it's pretty easy to see what that was all about. They had to put so many eggs in the Jacoby Brissett basket to make sure that they had something to hand over to Deshaun. So you had, guys like Amari Cooper and all these guys really, really working hard on their chemistry with Jacoby, and they had to run a game plan that was suited to his skill set.
Right.
Well, Deshaun's a completely different quarterback, and then the timing doesn't happen overnight, and he didn't really have time to get reps. Even in the couple weeks that he was back before he started, they were still working with Jacoby most of the time. So, he just didn't have the time to kind of get it together with his guys. And then you saw young guys that really weren't necessarily ready for the kinds of things that Deshaun offers on the football field. Those are things that are going to have to be worked on really, really hard in the offseason and preseason. Learning how to run those sight adjustments, learning how to stay alive and relevant for when he's off script and off schedule. And then the other thing that I've been saying over and over and over again, he's going to have to just find some guys that you just have that, what you can't coach, that natural chemistry with, that natural camaraderie that just sort of presents itself on the field, where you just like a guy and he likes you out there, and it just happens together. And he didn't really have the opportunity to find that last year.
Mary Kay, I was sitting here and I just had an epiphany. It happens quite often, believe it or not. But so I was sitting, obviously I did the Browns radio network last year. I did the post game, so I dealt with the callers. I had to do a lot of therapy sessions last year. But one of the main issues was that they felt Kevin Stefanski, didn't have a pulse on the team. He was so into the plays that he never looked around. Do you think them going out to get Jim Schwartz and Bubba Ventrone is what's the word I'm looking for? An answer for him to be able to continue to look at his playbook and not have to worry about addressing other parts of defensive special teams because those guys are good enough to do it themselves?
Yeah, well, certainly he is not going to have as much involvement in those two aspects of the football team this year. My goodness, you don't really have to interfere too much with Jim Schwartz or with Bubba Ventrone. So certainly Kevin Stefanski can focus way more on the offense, and some of the big picture, but these guys are going to have it nailed. They're going to have it now. They will have their growing pains. It's going to take a while for everybody to figure out, okay, what does Jim Schwartz really want us to do on this defense? But it actually sounds fairly simple. The coaching points seem simple. For the defensive line, it's going to be find your way to the quarterback, find a path to the quarterback and get there and be disruptive as much as you can. And by the way, play the run after you do that. So, so I think, that's going to go pretty well. I think Kevin will have plenty of time, to focus on getting this right. And I think Deshaun Watson will have a ton of input in how things go on the offense and what's getting called. And I think there's going to be constant communication. And he doesn't have any limitations. Deshaun doesn't have any limitations. So, it's not like Kevin has to worry about, can we throw the long ball, or can we throw on the run, or can we run the no huddle or the RPO or whatever the case may be. He can do anything. It's an open book, and those guys just have to work together to make it pop.
I'm never one to wish the summer away, but right now I wish it was September 10th, an hour to kick off. I can't wait to see this group in action. Mary Kay, excellent stuff. Thanks, as always. Enjoy your summer. I'm sure we'll speak soon.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, guys.
You bet.